power of the state to take away people's welfare. I realise as I'm saying that's just a whole nother.
I don't believe in welfare.
Right, yeah,
all.
I realise that as the words were coming out of my mouth, but nonetheless, yeah, the idea that the state can, if it's oppressing the right people, I don't know. The point I'm making.
Criminals and parasites are allowed to be oppressed.
It's a weird form of oppression. I will no longer be given free money.
Yeah.
So,
and just to make clear, I'm not in favour of people blocking the roads. Of course.
Sure.
Obviously not. Of course.
Bo's actually secretly a member of Extinction Rebellion.
Yeah, right.
It's been a really long con this whole time. But yes.
But no, all those things are pretty damn based, aren't they? I mean, some of them are incredible. Just to reduce bureaucracy or unnecessary government. Great.
I like to see it, yeah. I would like more of that here.
I mean,
really.
if he stopped now, maybe he should do nothing for the rest of his term. If he was just like, peace out.
Yeah, he's not even been in office that long and he's already done all of this.
Hello, folks. We just had that.
So it's quite promising, isn't it? And, it's good to see it happening and I'm interested to see the consequences of it. However, there are some sticking points here. For example, defying Milei's austerity, an Argentinian province plans to develop its own currency.
Okay, good luck. That's not going to work.
La Rioja province is to issue a new blockade currency to pay salaries. That's not going to last too well, I imagine, because he's been legitimately elected by...
What's blockade currency? I've not ever heard of that before.
I'm not entirely sure.
Word.
Google it.
Yeah, you can be our sort of Google for the day.
And as a libertarian, should they not be allowed to?
Well, this is the thing that, I support people coming up with their own currency, but I also think that they're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Okay.
It means fabric, so just paper, I presume.
Paper money.
Okay.
Yes.
Fiat physical currency.
Yeah.
But it's not going to work because it's not backed by anything. You're just a province of a country.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one believes in you, so no one's going to believe in your money.
Exactly. And all that Milei did was just said, once it fails, the government won't come and help you.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to leave it to fail on its own, which is exactly the right thing to do. Yeah.
If the local council decides to spend all of the budget on printing good boy points and then says that's the new currency. And then
Rioja bucks, yeah.
Yeah, just don't. If the Prime Minister just came and said, don't pay a council tax, you're clearly being run by idiots.
The thing is, their province is named after a famous wine-producing province in Spain. So why they didn't choose to make their currency wine, I do not know.
Actual Rioja.
Yeah.
They're going to pay you in Rioja.
That would be genius because it's actually got value. It's a fungible good, like actual money should be.
I actually think it's gross. I hate Rioja.
Yeah, Rioja is the worst kind of red, really. It's too many tannins.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Moving on.
And there's also other things as well. People like his approach to being a politician more generally. People sharing this of him flying business class rather than in a private jet, which, I mean, to my mind, even flying business class is a bit upmarket, but it's still the kind of thing you would like to see, someone leading by example, and he's cutting budgets and he's also saying, I'm not taking a private jet around the place. I'm going to fly in business class, which, is nice to see. It's kind of similar to seeing Jeremy Corbyn on the tube, where if you don't do that, you're kind of a bit of a hypocrite, right?
I feel like it is a bit performative. Nonetheless, I'll take it though.
Yeah,
it is still better than jetting around on a private jet.
Mm-hmm. So if we can move to the video, John, I can't remember how to do it. Oh, there we go. This is a video which is in anticipation of him talking at the World Economic Forum. I do apologize, it is in Spanish. However, there are subtitles, and I'll explain roughly what he said once we've watched it. So let's have a listen.
Plantar las ideas de la libertad en un foro que está contaminado de la agenda socialista 2030 y que lo único que va a traer es miseria al mundo.
Okay. ¿En qué va a basarse la exposición del día miércoles? ¿Cuál es el eje del discurso?
Que la libertad es la llave de la prosperidad.
¿Y cuál es el sentido de la reunión con Cristalina Georgieva que va a tener la audiencia el mismo miércoles?
Seguir hablando y dejándole bien claro de la convicción que tenemos en este cambio de rumbo que ha marcado el nuevo gobierno.
Muchas gracias, presidente.
So there we go. He was pretty clear that he's going to go to the World Economic Forum to stick it to them about being socialists and explain our ideas and why our ideas will work and theirs won't. That's basically what he said, right? I'm not mischaracterizing that. So
Can I just make one
Of course.
tiny point? Is it just me, or are those sideburns ridiculous?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But that's great.
Yeah,
It's a look.
It wouldn't be my choice of facial hair. Let's just say that. Give me a full beard or a mustache. Don't
There's no
get these sideburns unless you've got proper sort of mutton chops where you only shave here. I respect a man with those.
legendary figures in history have to have something weird looking about them. Otherwise, they're just not proper.
Mhm.
I
know what you mean.
I think there's actually a scene in The Rise of Evil in which Hitler has that conversation because he's like, no one really recognizes you. And he's like, yeah, look at Lenin. He's bald.
Nobody cared who I was until I put on the mustache. Yeah.
Literally, he goes home and shaves, and that's his look. And he uses that look because it's, you actually stand out in the crowd of politicians. Just
I suppose it's true, yeah.
It's literally only Hitler, Charlie Chaplin, and the Zimbabwe dictator dudes that goes with that moustache.
And then how many bald dictators are there? You got Lenin, and then that's it.
Mussolini.
Oh, he was bald in the end, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? There's a chance yet, Bo.
Anyway, you've wasted too much time on his sideburns already. Carry on.
So here's the video that the World Economic Forum put up on their YouTube channel. At the time of recording this, it's got 433,000 views, which is one of the highest. And out of the live streams on the World Economic Forum's YouTube channel, it's up there. Hang on,
You'll have to scroll.
yes. Sort
Most
by
of these
popular.
got 5,000 views.
We sort by popular.
He's number 3.
Number 3, he beat Donald Trump, which is quite something, isn't it? Because, of course, that was 5 years ago as well. So that's had time to accumulate views. So to say that this has had a bit of an impact is to make it a bit of an understatement. But I'm going to read a little bit of what he said. I think some of it misses the mark a little bit, to be honest. I think that targeting them and saying they're socialists is, there's an element of it, but it's not the full picture of what is wrong with the World Economic Forum, I think. And I'll explain once I've read a little bit out. So there's a full transcript of what he said. Obviously, I've listened to the actual speech as well. So I've made sure there's no tomfoolery with the transcript. So if you wanted to read the whole thing, because believe it or not, he said it in Spanish, you are more than welcome. There are also some compelling AI translations where they replace his voice with an English one, and he even reads it out in his accent. But he says, today I'm here to tell you that the Western world is in danger, and it is in danger because those who are supposed to defend the values of the West are co-opted by a vision of the world that is inexorably leads to socialism and thereby to poverty. Unfortunately, in recent decades, the main leaders of the Western world have abandoned the model of freedom for different versions of what we call collectivism. Some have been motivated by well-meaning individuals who are willing to help others, and others have been motivated by the wish to belong to a private caste. And I think he's directly targeting sort of World Economic Forum types, because they certainly view themselves, we are the elite. These are rules we are coming up with for the common people. And they discuss public policy in those sorts of terms in other speeches and things like that. And it says, we're here to tell you that the collectivist experiments are never solutions to the problems that afflict citizens of the world. Rather, they are the root cause. Do you believe me? No one is better placed than us, Argentines, to testify to these 2 points. And then he goes on to explain the Argentinian history. But the sort of TLDR of it is Argentina was richer when it was capitalist and poorer when it was socialist. And I'm sure many of you are well acquainted with the economics of it. And I'm not going to bore you with all of the examples, but he goes through quite methodically how the Argentine economy has either risen or fell in the global standing based on its metrics of economic freedom, I suppose. And then he carries on, and I'm going to read this part here, and he says, now, if free enterprise, capitalism, and economic freedom have proven to be extraordinary instruments to end poverty in the world, we are now in the best time of in the history of humanity. It is worth asking why I say that the West is in danger. And I say this precisely because in countries that should defend the values of the free market, private property, and other institutions of libertarianism, sectors of the political and economic establishment are undermining the foundations of libertarianism, opening up the doors to socialism and potentially condemning us to poverty, misery, and stagnation. So he's directing this at the World Economic Forum. And I know that people argue, oh, they're communists, oh, they're socialists. But I think that they've been quite clear that they want stakeholder capitalism. So they basically want large investment companies, largely speaking, to determine their investment decisions in a capitalist way, but based on, these progressive principles, isn't it? It's
But everyone now has a stake in your business because you're right next door to them. The
yes.
smell of your bread wafted into my neighborhood, so I know
So
I'm
it's-
part of your business.
So it's fair to say it's a bit more collectivist than not. So he's not exactly wrong, but the nature of stakeholder capitalism and what Schwab and people have been tangibly pushing. I mean, we've seen the fingerprints of this in actual political decisions whereby, Schwab has a meeting and then a couple of months later, a bunch of Western leaders enact a similar stakeholder capitalist policy of some kind. And so we can see the fingerprints here, but a socialist isn't going to operate in that way. And by him referring to socialism constantly, it's kind of not naming the devil, so to speak. Sure, I don't like socialism. I hate it as much as anyone, really. But by calling them socialist, you're implying that there are lots of things that they believe that they might not necessarily believe. And I think that if you're pushing back against the World Economic Forum and their ideas, you've got to be accurate in how you're representing them.
To be fair to him, this is probably just shorthand, probably especially in the Spanish-speaking Latin American world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't mind too much.
I think it plays into this sort of libertarian ideologue, and I say that as one, where anything that isn't sort of libertarian is a form of socialism in some way.
What do you mean I can't sell my children?
Well, one thing I would say is that what you've said there, that take, assumes that the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, that you take them at their word, that they're being honest. And I wouldn't do that. I would suggest that might even be a bit naive. They might describe themselves for now as a stakeholder capitalist, but in fact, their true goal is collectivization of some
I obviously
type.
don't take them at their word, and maybe I've not been clear enough why I think what I think, but as I said previously, it's not just their stated preference, it's also their revealed preference in that the way in which they're influencing world leaders indicates that what they're saying seems to be, there's some truth to it in that that's what they actually believe.
Like the classic thing, almost to a point of cliche now or something, is that they want you to, in the future, you won't have any property and things. That's not stakeholder capitalism, is it?
But it is capitalism for me and not for thee, isn't it? It's like a
so
sort
not
of,
capitalism.
Yes.
well, I wouldn't regard it as capitalism.
There's a synthesis here, which is, as the chat has correctly pointed out, we went over it in our Stakeholder Capitalism premium podcast, which is on the website, blah, blah, blah. This ultimately does end up as just fascism, because if you read the Doctrine of Fascism, I'm not just saying it because the word, the Doctrine of Fascism talks about the fact that socialism, as it was interpreted by Marx, etc., has failed. So instead, we don't need some kind of revolution on workers' lines, we need one on a national line, and therefore you have to bring all the different aspects of society together into some kind of whole. And the stakeholder capitalism rhetoric is exactly the same. It's just in a democratic sphere. It's the fact that, I mean, this is why you end up with no property, because everyone has to become part of the state effectively for the good of the state. It's why you end up having to eat bugs, because, well, it's for the good of the planet, which is for the good of the state. It's like, okay, I'm feeling so democratic right now.
So it comes down to the fundamental thing of property rights, right? Are you for or not? The very concept of individual property rights. I would suggest that
that's why I say
they're
maybe
probably not. Yeah,
the WEF aren't.
Yeah, I would like to make it as clear as possible. I'm not defending them in any way.
No, I wasn't saying you were.
But I think that if we're to fight against it, you've got to be clear about what their aims are. And I think by calling them socialists, it muddies the water, basically. But to sort of carry on with it, he ends up with saying, do not surrender to the advance of the state. The state is not the solution. The state is the problem itself. You are the true protagonists of this story. I think he's talking to the business leaders at the World Economic Forum. And rest assured that from today, Argentina is your staunch and unconditional ally. Thank you very much, and long live freedom. So that's the sort of short form. I skipped lots of bits, but you get the gist of it. You can watch it. It's about 25 minutes long. And, I agree with that sentiment at the end that business leaders need not feel guilty. Generating profit is a pro-social thing because they're providing services that are profitable and efficient that make it cheaper, in theory at least.
It's how we all become richer.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so that is a more direct refutation in my mind, saying that actually you don't need I forgot what they're called. The indexes that like your BlackRocks are using.
ESG.
ESGs. They're not using ESGs. What you're doing is good enough. Just generating profit is a pro-social enterprise. You don't need stakeholder capitalism. That's actually targeting what he's saying. Banging on about socialism and collectivism to a lesser extent because it kind of applies. I feel like he's not targeting them as much. And there's someone I would like to compare them to in a second who did a much better job at targeting the actual core assumptions of the World Economic Forum, and more explicitly, he banged on about socialism for 25 minutes or so. And that could just be dismissed, right? I know it is sort of catnip to the right, just like, yeah, he's gone there, he's stuck it to them right in their faces. And there's an element of that. I felt that too. But I think it could have been done much better. And that kind of raised a red flag in my mind that, well, if these are the people he's up against and he's not characterizing them, of course you could say that he's deliberately veiled it to kind of hide his true intentions, which, could be the case. Maybe everyone's lying.
Or just to appeal to his own base at home.
Yeah, that could well be it. But I felt like it left a lot to be desired, actually. So the media did not think that, other than, of course, this one. This is from the World Socialist website. Oligarchs in Davos applaud fascist rant by Argentine President Milei. I just included this because socialists still don't understand.
All you can do is laugh at this
liberty.
point.
But it had to be included because I thought it's funny.
Who are these? The International Committee of the Fourth International?
World Socialist
Bunch of commies.
Yeah.
Oh, the World Socialist. Okay, right. Okay.
It's in grey. It's poorly made because it's socialist. So here we have the Telegraph, Dan Hannan, House of Lords, free trader, Brexiteer, saying, smug world elites have been exposed by a chainsaw-wielding libertarian. He's sort of classical liberal, quite liberty-leaning, so that's probably why.
Look at his face. He's calling other people smug.
He's not saying it in a pejorative sense, is he? Here's another one from the Telegraph. Javier Milei has exposed Davos's left-wing rot. So the press is lapping this up, at least superficially. Here is the Spectator. Javier Milei dismantles the Davos groupthink. I think these are somewhat over-egging it a bit. And here we have Wall Street Journal over in the States. Argentina's Milei gives Davos crowd a spine transplant. My goodness. That's a bit strong for the Wall Street Journal, isn't it? But yes, I think a lot of people on the right loved it. And, it was satisfying to see someone stick the middle finger up at Davos. But I think it was done better by this guy. I'd not heard of him before.
Yeah, me neither. I retweeted this guy and I'd never heard of him before. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
I'm not going to play the clip. It's about 3 minutes long, but I'm just going to summarize his main points. That he brings up that it's absurd that Davos pretends to be protecting liberal democracy in the first place. He explicitly says so at the World Economic Forum. He says that the word dictator being bandied around in reference to Trump is absurd, and that there's no basis for it, which I think is true. He says the elites at Davos are part of the problem, but directly to their faces. He says there are lots of differences between the elites that are at Davos and in the messaging and reality. And he says that open borders are not economically beneficial, whereas you say that they are. Public safety is a problem in American cities. You say it's not. He proposes that solutions to climate change, or whatever that might mean, are worse than the purported problem, that more people will die from the solutions than the cause, which seems certainly to be the case. He also says you shouldn't be giving the Chinese Communist Party a platform if you purport to care about freedom and liberal democracy, which is fair enough. And he also says that the World Health Organization should not be pushing gender ideology on the global south. And these are all things that are counter to explicit WEF aims, explicit WEF lines. Is not just attacking esoteric socialism, this ever-present spectre. It's saying, you believe these things, these are wrong. I think that is the way you stick it to the World Economic Forum. And, I don't have a horse in the race for this gentleman specifically. I just liked what he said. I mean, I didn't know who he was. But he's hitting all the right notes there. And I think that this takes the form of a better criticism of the World Economic Forum within the World Economic Forum than what Milei delivered, as much as I wanted it to be as excoriating as people were saying. So part of my hesitation towards praising Milei too much is this as well.
Can I just say one last thing before we move on?
Of course,
that Kevin bloke.
I'll move back.
It was just a great example of speaking truth to power. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. One small thing, and it's no criticism of him. It's just interesting that the World Economic Forum would invite someone on and let them do that.
I know, yeah.
Maybe I'm just being conspiratorial, but they've deliberately let that happen. I just wonder why.
Well, I mean,
it's a release valve or something.
As we've shown, I mean, they had Trump back in the day. It's just about getting powerful people around you and then trying to influence them.
That Trump live stream was 2018 as well, so when he was president.
Yeah, and they probably knew what Milei was going to say or likely to say.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's just a small point.
But do you get my overall point here about the difference between sticking to the WEF? Like this
I
guy
preferred what he said to what Milei said. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you'll definitely agree with this. Milei has brought up the fact that he's discussing with the UK about the ownership of the Falkland Islands. And this, to my mind, is a massive line in the sand.
Do you feel anything to this?
Yes.
Really? Because this reminds me of like the Russian Federation being like, give Alaska back. I mean, there's not even a jot of fear or anger. It's just, shut up. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, for one, there may be this little known thing as the Falklands War in 1982. Yeah, it's within living memory.
Yeah.
This kind of solved it, did it not? There was also, in 2013, a vote on the Falkland Islands with 92% turnout and 99.8% voted to remain a British territory. So only 3 people in the Falkland Islands voted against being part of Britain.
So I'll just say, I know a fair bit about the Falklands War on my own channel, History Bro. Check it out, like and subscribe. There is a video. There is a video where I'm talking all about the Falklands War. It's one of the things I have been interested in for a long time, and know a bit about it. Just to say, they were under a military junta at the time, military dictatorship. Literally, a general was their head of state at the time, and he just sort of unilaterally did it. So, with the best will in the world, I don't think Milei could do sort of a sneak attack and sort of invade the Falkland Islands out of a clear blue sky, which is what they did in 1962.
I don't think he's going to be pressuring to do that in the first place. He's trying to use diplomatic means.
The thing is, you said there was another vote or a plebiscite on the Falklands in 2013. They have it fairly regularly. Every few years they do it, just so we can make it clear that the people that live there consider themselves British and want to remain a British protectorate or territory. That's the end of the story.
Yes.
That's the end of the story. There's no more discussion. Really, politically.
Although I would love to go there and hunt down those 3 people and just ask them, like, why? I bet they did it just for a laugh. So they thought they'd each have the one vote.
Everyone knew they were already voting for Britain, and so they did it just so it didn't look like 100%, like we got a North Korean election.
Yeah.
And of course, the population on the Falklands is tiny.
Yeah.
I've heard it said by a number of people that if the Argentinians really wanted those islands, the government could just pay for a whole bunch of families, a few dozen or 100 families, to go and live there. And then when they have another vote comes up, then the whole dynamic would be different. But they don't do that. I think, again, Milei is just appealing to his base.
Yeah, well,
Argentinian nationalists just love the idea that they could have those islands back.
I very much agree with that.
Speaking to them.
But my problem with this is that if he's purporting to be, this principled libertarian that can't be bought and is actually going to follow through with his promises, what he's doing there is denying people property rights in that, this is, the property of the people who live there, the British citizens living on the Falkland Islands. They've clearly voted to remain there. You can't just supplant them because the islands are close to you. It's like, oh, you can't steal from someone just like, oh, but your stuff's kind of close to me. I can just take it. That's not an argument for taking something. And so, to my mind, that is an indication that he's willing to renege on his principles if it means he's going to be more popular. He's going to get more tangible benefits. And of course, I'm a bit biased because I'm, the notion of there being another Falklands War, which is not going to happen, but, that makes me very, very angry that someone would insult us in that way. And there's no need for this either. Sure, it might be a vote winner, but it's not like there's any citizens there that they need to protect. And there have been polls done on Twitter, which are meaningless basically. But the Argentines, this is just to indicate how much they want it. As you can see, I was there arguing with people, and I got a bunch of argies in my replies. I was there at the poll, not in the Falklands War. I wasn't born yet.
You're at Goose Green in '82, leading the charge. No, sorry.
I don't even want to joke about that. But no, the Argentines clearly care about it a lot, because they basically brigaded this poll and made it in Argentina's favour. Plus, I think a lot of people who hate Britain probably voted in it as well, just to spite us. But it goes to show the sort of appetite amongst Argentines. That's 43,000 votes, hardly a representative sample, but it's something to go by. And so, yes, I have my reservations. He's done some very good stuff in government, but I felt like his address to the WEF, it was good. I liked what he said. It could have been more pointed. There could have been more to it. The Falklands stuff, I'm pretty annoyed about, actually. And that is my review of what he's been up to.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as Lads Hour, this episode on the $2 billion question. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.